Okay, well, this is a very good sign. So it works, and on this positive note, I wanted to say that we have very rich discussion yesterday. We touched upon many issues, such as the package that is should be provided for children and families with children, the returns or internal rate of return for different measures, and financing of this package. And we wanted to add a little bit of food for thought and discussion in terms of the international experience and even some intertemporal experience. As Francesca said, we're looking at how other countries approach social protection and what is the rate of return on this, and how we can support development of children with early children education, and also some ideas on how we can approach determination of needs on the example of education, of disability, I'm sorry. So, please don't judge me by my choice of words. This is just an attempt to do some clustering of ideas when we discuss anything that is related to social protection. There are sometimes underlying dilemmas, and the way we approach, or the governments approach these dilemmas, may change over time and depending on the situation. So we normally see that there is distinction between what people in specific circumstances and countries think of as earned benefits, and very often this is benefits that depend on contributions, but not always, and unearned benefits. So they're usually solely based on need, and what is a proper need or deserving need may also change over time and depending on the circumstances. Then there is very often a values clash. There are philosophical schools that say people are inherently good, they want to achieve their full potential if given a chance, so we need to give them this chance. And there are philosophical schools that say people are basically inherently lazy, and unless coerced, either by social contracts or some unbearable circumstances, they won't do anything. So we need to kind of provide this push for them. And also, what are the deserving circumstances? Sometimes sudden life event or broad shock in the economy seen as deserving a stronger response than trying to pull out of poverty people that were in this poverty for generations. So all these dilemmas, they find different solutions through time in different countries, and we observe some sort of a cycle. Very similar to economic cycle, there is also a cycle in terms of how people approach resolving these issues. So the first picture that I wanted to say, this is Roman Empire. And what is happening here is that in Roman Empire, every citizen was entitled, or a significant share of the citizens were entitled to so-called grain toll, which is, in modern terms, is basically is a universal social protection. And every citizen was entitled, there are different amounts in sources, but one number that I saw is 33 kilograms of grain per month. Every individual, right? So that goes a long way in helping no one go hungry, in my opinion. And then there is a document that is called Laws Relating to the Poor, and this is a very stark departure of what you see in the first picture, because the idea of this law, that is dated 1834, is that the life of the poor should be practically made unbearable, right? So there is a period when there were workhouses or poor houses. If you wanted to get support, you should go to this workhouse. You would have been given a very hard manual labor with harshly regulated breaks, bland meals, deprived of any joys of that time, such as smoking or chewing tobacco. And basically the idea was, if there is any chance for you to avoid this, you would do whatever is in your power, just not to be in the workhouse, but get a proper work. And finally, the third picture, so this is President Nixon. And maybe when you hear about Nixon, the social protection is not the first thing that crosses your mind. But what is happening on this picture is President Nixon announces the Family Assistance Program. And unfortunately, this is, I think, 1968. The program was not approved by Congress at that time. But this program delineates approach to welfare pretty much the way we see it today. So it was assessing the situation of the family, providing cash benefits, providing training and support for employment, and in terms of special needs, such as if there are members with disability in the family, there were supplemental benefits that would help them to cope with their specific situation. And these measures pretty much became mainstream in the 90s. But I think the President Nixon should be given some credit. Okay, I missed the button. That's, this thing is difficult. Another dilemma that is not about the human nature, but the problem that we see countries discussing a lot is like, can people be trusted with money? And if we give them money, so do we make their situation worse? Right? Do they start to drink a lot of alcohol, maybe smoke a lot, use drugs, and so on? So, and this table shows a collection of different evaluation studies. Some of them are just comparing before and after. Some of them use the gold standard of evaluation, which is randomized controlled trial. And there are a variety of effects. But what is encircled in red here, it shows that there is very little evidence that there is positive correlation between consumption of temptation goods and benefits. So, in fact, we see much larger correlation when people are given a chance to change their life and given some support, they may reduce this consumption. And in case of randomized control trials, which basically eliminates a fact that is not related to cash benefits, maybe something related to availability of this temptation goods or something else. So we see actually some zeros. And another big question, is this money well spent? Is this a handout, just sunk cost that we need to bear because we have poor in society, or if this is an investment? And we spoke a lot about this being actually an investment, but what I want to present on this slide is that there is a lot of studies in different countries that explain what exactly this investment achieves. And so in terms of building human capital, sometimes people wouldn't appear if not for the design of a specific social program. So there is an example of Nigeria that uses conditional cash transfers, and pregnant women should go and see prenatal care. And some of children are saved in this way and they appear, while in Brazil and the US, there are studies that show that there is statistically significant reduction in suicides for people that receive support. So we also prevent some premature loss of human capital. Evidence on socioeconomic skills, reducing violence and physiological well-being, talking about strengthening of the families. Other studies show that families that receive support and cash transfers, there is less of violence happening within the family. Resilience to shocks, so just as recently we saw the COVID pandemic, a lot of countries had increased poverty, but many countries that responded with support saw less of an increase than is projected otherwise. And there are even specific designs that there is a notion of graduation package. This is basically a grant to start business and training that allows the poor that can't find job just switch to self-employment. And although there is some diminishing effect because not every poor is that active, that is ready to start working to become self-employed, but there is still positive effect. And finally, there are designs of programs that facilitate mobility, job transition, and reskilling, and support the development of the private sector. So this brings us broadly to the question how we can evaluate the magnitude of this impact. So yesterday we saw numbers related to investment in family-based care for children. But when we talk broadly, and this is of course about cash transfers, but I will explain in a minute what is the basic idea behind these graphs. And I think that arguably some expenditures, such as for example those that are spent on personal assistance, they would be within these conclusions and principles. So this number of bars, it shows effect in different countries. So for every dollar spent on social protection, in this case cash transfers, how much the economy grows. And as you see, there are countries, there are examples of a lot of countries that are lower income, but you can also see Mexico and USA. There are pretty significant returns. So for every dollar spent, for example, in Mexico, you see increase of $2 in GDP, 2.5. And in the US, it is 1.5. And this is on par with investment in infrastructure, for example. And another example, so this check on the right side, this is the economic impact, or what became to know the economic stimulus that the US used during COVID times. And this graph underneath it is a conclusion of the Congressional Budget Office of how much impact. It's not on the checks. So these are impacts of the anti-COVID measures in general. But the effect of these measures, the likely range at some point reaches up to 16% of GDP. So this brings the whole aspect of the discussion. So how do we, by the work you do, and depending on the design of the programs you work with, how do you impact the economic development broadly in the country, and not only for countries that you work with? And I want to underscore this last idea with the following piece of analysis. So there is a well-known Bolsa Familia program in Brazil, and at some point there was a large expansion. It was in 2009, yes. And what this graph is trying to show, so there was a different take-up within the country. So there were municipalities that really tried to enroll more people, and there was a large effect from the changes of the program, and there were municipalities where the effect was not that great. So this graph is trying to show the difference between the municipalities that enrolled a lot of people and those that don't. And so what is happening is that there was a large increase in employment and in paid taxes after the expansion in municipalities that enrolled a lot of people. And those who became newly employed, and the effect was in the range of increased employment by 2%, those were people that never received the benefit. It's just this effect that I showed on the previous slide and on this one is because by providing cash benefits, you effectively change the consumption pattern, and you make people consume locally more, and you support demand, and you support local economic development. And this is why I compared cash transfer to expenditures that are, for example, made to pay social assistance, because we are talking about people with a high propensity to spend. They will not be putting this money into savings, definitely. Another criticism. And one sentence that we heard during the spring meetings is that in social protection programs, people just get on a roll and stay there forever. And we actually did analysis at the request of the government of what is the distribution of payments in the system in Moldova, in ZHUKOVSKI. And you see that there is a big bunch of payments made over the years for a single person below retirement age and single pensioners. Everybody else, they don't even come close. And what happened that this single person below retirement age, a lot of these people are people with disabilities. So the question is, yeah, there is a bunch of people that normally you wouldn't expect these people to leave the system. If a person has a severe disability and you assign social assistance, not that the situation of this person will radically improve next year, right? So you would expect, and also single pensioners, very often unable to work. So if anything, the situation of this person will probably worsen over years. But there is a good number of people, family with different number of children, mixed adults, so these are families without children, but with maybe with some pensioners, maybe somebody with a disability, or maybe somebody is able to work. So how do we address this greener portion of the graph? And I want to circle back here to the ideas that Francesco, my colleague, presented yesterday when he talked about the case management. And we discussed the strengthening of the family as one of the key measures that ensures that children get proper care. And so what I'm trying to show here is that this is not only about addressing situation in a family when there is child and focus on the child. Very often we need to focus on family more broadly. Sometimes this is about situation that precedes the time when child is born, as I mentioned during the discussing support provided in Nigeria. Sometimes this is support provided during pregnancy, over the childhood. Then if parents of the child are unable to get proper health care and are not being helped in getting employment, then this is also will affect the environment in which this child will grow. And then if there is a person that is old age in the family, this person can also provide support to this family in bringing up child and ensuring that parents of the child are able to work. And this is why when we approach the family holistically and we use the case management tool in matching challenges and problems of a concrete family with the available tools, then this will definitely benefit the child. And with this, I want to pass the mic to Mariana, and she will touch the issue on the early childhood development.